It's hard to imagine being effective in creating change without communicating well about it, without making the case, mobilizing people, and building a future vision. From the very beginning of how one names a movement, think about the power of Black Lives Matter, pro-life, pro-choice, to taglines. The movement for gay marriage, for instance, went from gay marriage to winning marriage, signifying this is something that we can actually accomplish and do. There are communications with many audiences, which is the complication of the communications lever. There are the organizers, there are the constituents, there are the influencers, there is the world at large. In fact, there are 6 strategic hurdles that social movements have to get over using communications. And the first is attracting new recruits. You need to communicate with people that you want to join your movement. The second is sustaining their commitment and their morale over time. You need them to stay with you. Another is generating media coverage, preferably, but not necessarily, of a positive type, but getting attention through the media. Fourth is mobilizing the support of various bystanders, people who you might need to become involved to really flip the movement into the behavior you want. The fifth is constraining the social control options of the people against you. Being able to communicate in a way that doesn't bring against you the power of the establishment that you're trying to change. And the last is to ultimately shape public policy and state action with language that policymakers can understand. So those are 6 strategic hurdles, all of which the communications lever addresses. Now, more often than not, the communications lever actually accompanies other levers and supports it. We've talked about gun rights, against drunk driving, the immigration debate, which around the world is so hot. What language do you use? What are you talking about? How are you trying to communicate this to be accepted not only now, and not only through laws and policies and behavior, but over time, language that lasts. So it can be, communications can either be your primary or your supporting lever. Examples of some cases in which it's been the primary lever are Never Again, Me Too. There are phone booths in New York City that have recordings of immigrants telling their stories. It's purely a communications play. To communicate well, we're familiar with standard communications or marketing. You know, who are you communicating with? What's the message? Who carries the message? How do you communicate the message? What channels? But with social movements, it goes beyond that. Yes, you need to understand those things, but there are other tools as well that are really critical to success. So one tool within communications lever is the ability to frame. Framing your message is important. It helps people decode what you're trying to say. It involves symbolism around the movement. It involves things like peace or saving the world, these large frames. And on top of that, in social movements, we have the benefit of having created master frames. Master frames that can mobilize new movements behind the primary one and that can anchor new movements and get them started faster. So one of the master frames from the civil rights movement was one of equality and opportunity. It was not about rights. Rights changed to equality, and opportunity was a more powerful master frame. That was used in civil rights. It was then used in the women's movement, in disability movement, in the American Indian movement, LGBT movement. Same thing happened more recently in marriage equality, where the marriage equality movement started talking about people's rights, right? The right to marry, and then shifted to equality and opportunity to participate as others do, which was a more effective frame to be using. So think about frames and master frames. In terms of communications, I also want you to think beyond the narrative and beyond words. Symbols are very, very powerful. Examples are Gandhi dressing in native cloth, moving from being dressed in a Western business suit to native cloth that, by the way, was illegal to grow and be spun in India at the time, so it carried a very powerful message of independence and Indian rule. Flags, independence flags of Catalonia or the Kurds that convey a very powerful message. Raised fist, peace sign. We know what these mean, and they say a lot in a very, very small gesture. Arts, songs, art. Amazing Grace, song known probably around the world, is from UK abolition, hundreds of years ago. And humor. Humor is a very, very powerful tool when we're dealing with difficult issues, asking people to change things that they may have been committed to for generations and generations. Humor is a wonderful, wonderful tool to use in communications. And finally, I would add the importance of authenticity. Messages are meaningful. They have to be meaningful for beneficiaries and for people who you're trying to recruit. And one of the tools you have in your messaging is the words you use yourself and the messenger. The messenger must be credible. We all know this. We believe some people and we don't believe other people carrying the same message. We've got to believe that the person believes what he or she is saying and is with us on this road to social change.